Dan, before commercial break, we were talking about how dire the situation is. Is this problem regional in Canada? Are there certain regions or provinces that are more impacted than others? What are the numbers that you're seeing?
It is growing quickly across Canada, but those provinces that reopened earlier or didn't close down as tight obviously are ahead of provinces like Ontario that only reopened in the last few days. So in Western Canada, in particular, Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, those provinces either remained largely open or have reopened almost fully. And as a result, their labor shortage is just a few weeks ahead of where we sit in Ontario and other parts of central Canada. But this is a big issue right across Canada. I think it's more directly affecting sectors that employ part-time workers, the sectors that were, of course, hardest hit by the pandemic. But it is right throughout the food chain. I'm hoping some of this is temporary. As these programs, the support programs, start to wind down, one assumes that we're going to attract back some of these workers into the workforce. In fact, they're supposed to, if their employer recalls them, return to the workplace. They're not supposed to have the option of saying, no, I'm just going to stick off on benefits. But we know that government enforcement of those rules is really, really weak.
Well, and if you think of it from the worker's perspective, let's talk about a restaurant worker here in Ontario, for example. There's been a yo-yoing of opening, closing, indoor, outdoor, patio, curbside. It's just been a smorgasbord. However, there might be an employee who says, you know what, it's been so much red tape just to get on this government program that, yeah, maybe I'll return to work for a couple weeks, but then what? I'm going to have even more red tape to reapply to get on that program? It's just not worth it. And I can appreciate that.
You're absolutely right. Not only that, but as you mentioned yourself before the break, while it is no question safer now to return to work than it was last year, governments, public health authorities are still telling people, stay home as much as possible. And as a result of that, it's little wonder why workers are a bit hesitant to return to the workforce. What we need is governments, all levels of governments and public health authorities to say, you know what? It is safe to return to the workforce. If you're double vaccinated, you should be able to go back to your office. You should be able to go back to some of the things that you did, including working in frontline service occupations. But they're not doing that. We just heard the Premier just within days say, okay, we're hearing about a shortage of labor, workers get back to work. That's actually really positive news to hear from Premier Ford. As you know, I've been extremely critical of him and the incredibly long world-leading lockdown measures that have been put in place.
Right.
But it is good to hear the Premier now talking about getting people back to work. That's progress.
Yeah, well, let's talk about Premier Ford for a moment. Like in Ontario, he's the Premier, and you know, we all recall, I was kind of right there when he ran on a campaign of Ontario open for business. And he had that large sign erected. Yet it has been said, and I've heard this said, that through his policies, he has probably closed the most businesses out of any premier in Ontario history. Is that accurate?
There's no question. Not only has Ontario had the longest lockdown in Canada, not only has it had the longest lockdown in North America, but we believe that Ontario's had the longest lockdown in the entire world. Not the worst COVID outbreak, but the longest lockdown in the entire world. It has just hammered small business owners like you wouldn't believe. It's been so tough. Over 400 days, gyms in Toronto, indoor dining in Toronto have been closed either by provincial or local measures. How these businesses have been able to hang on it's really a testament to their fortitude as people that they've been able to hang on and fight against that. Meanwhile, the NDP in British Columbia did not close retail shopping for a single day through the entire pandemic.
Wow, I don't even believe you.
Ontario took the hammer to small business.
I don't even almost believe you because I live in Ontario and I can't even fathom, wow, they closed nothing. But hearing you say that, obviously it's true. It's shocking me just hearing you say that. My goodness, not one day.
Not a single day was retail closed. And in Ontario, it was over 200 days of retail closures. I mean, it feels like we're living on different planets, let alone two provinces in the same country.